play the Tribeca Film Festival.
Also known as this movie's alternate title, Paul Blart, the Neo-Nazi Mall Cop. So
exactly, that was definitely the working title.
That's the sell.
They were making it.
Yeah. That was the sell for me, man. I wasn't even really. I mean, I would have watched it, but I wasn't all that interested until I saw that Kevin James was playing a Nazi. I was just like, wow, that's a big left turn for him. So let's check this out.
Yeah, that was definitely the pitch for how they were going to market it, because it was like big comedy man in a serious role, which sometimes, honestly, it's worth a look almost every time someone does it.
Yeah.
It's just like, here, someone gets to stretch their legs in a role that they would never be considered for.
Yeah, and
I will say, I kind of liked him. I thought he was all right.
Yeah, I think so too. Now
he doesn't get a whole lot to do, unfortunately, but like I think he personally is like perfectly fine for the role.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a lot of this movie I found. It's like, it's nothing special by any means. I mean, it's very, even what it's saying with like the Nazi stuff and the interracial couple thing is very surface level. Like, they don't really dive into much of that. It's basically like, you know, Kevin James walks in, he talks about how a dog should be purebred, and it's, you know, the metaphor for how he views human beings to breed and all that kind of stuff. So it never really gets into any heavy things like that. It's just very like, here's the setup. We have a Nazi, or a group of Nazis, and they're here to fuck up this family.
They break out of prison, and then they look for a key, right?
Yeah.
I watched this a couple days ago, so I might not be remembering this totally correctly. And then, for some reason, Joel McHale and his daughter and his new
girlfriend
/ fiance. Yeah. And he's trying to sort of, similar to The Lodge, he's trying to like introduce his daughter to his new girlfriend / soon to be wife. And he decides to do that at the family cabin. That's the place to do it, man. That's just where these things happen.
And that'll be actually, just speaking on that little character moment, that does feel really dumb, because the way they set it up is Joel doesn't even tell his daughter that they're coming, you know, like in any way, shape, or form. Right. At least even in The Lodge, the guy, although did it shitty, like was still like, hey, this is gonna happen. She's coming. I'm warning you, you know. Whereas he just kind of lays it out as soon as they get to the cabin. They just show up, and she's like, well, of course she's gonna be kind of pissed. I mean, you had to have seen that coming, man. That was not the way to break it to your daughter, you know. So
no, exactly.
It's kind of contrived in that way a little bit, but.
Yeah, there's definitely like an aspect to it there. Like, I think you're right in that, like, the writing just kind of feels like they didn't really have much of an idea on how to use sort of the subject, or even really write too deeply into any of the characters. They kind of came up with a concept of like, what if we had a little girl who, you know, had a little bit of family trouble, and she had to kind of work cathartically through that trouble by
killing Nazis.
Violently dispatching a bunch of Nazis in her cabin / forest area. That is probably just someone who worked on the production's cabin.
Probably.
That we could film at for a weekend. And so like the movie feels very stitched together, basically just to be that, which to be fair to this movie, for most of it kind of works. I mean, I think the main thing that doesn't work for it is when it kind of like stretches beyond that, like the opening and closing moments where they like try to do like that first film student screenplay thing where you do the 2 weeks earlier leading up to like this badass crime moment kind of thing, and it doesn't quite like I didn't really buy into the psychology of the girl that they seemed to think that they were hitting on. But they do, I think, nail almost every piece of violence that they end up dishing out in this film. Which is definitely something to appreciate. Like any movie that commits to the level of gore that they do here and the way that they do it practically, I gotta give them credit there. The thing with the girl, the whole like, she's, you know, inside she's clearly has some troubling things because she's doing all these horrible things to these Nazis without, it seems, any real remorse.
so she's capable of unleashing this insane violence against the Nazis, and so your brain does kind of start to think maybe they should bring that up at least a little bit. And why it kind of works for me is because they do. Now, I get what you're saying is that they don't really do anything else other than just mention it. So it's kind of like inside our brains, you know, that little check mark is beside there where it's like, now we can kind of justify her insane violent actions that have taken place when she's like 12 years old or however old she is. But since they kind of spoke on it, I was okay with it because everything else in this movie is so surface level that I was just here for 12-year-old girl killing Nazis, give me really well shot gore, and all of that was there. So
is she only 12?
I think, I mean, the most, okay, it says a teenager, so I would say 13. I can't imagine that she's like I don't know, her look to me gave me like this more preteen kind of thing rather than I mean, not a child, like she's not a kid, but she's definitely on the cusp of like growing up, becoming a teenager, that thing. But she still does have things like she wears that little like that beanie hat that has like ears on it and stuff, so that just gives me a very childlike image. And which is definitely
what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and not to mention like how they